days healthy for thy service on earth, and purified for thy kingdom in heaven. I remember raising my head ever so slightly, peeking through one eye at him. His ruddy face and drooping jowls quivered. His eyes were squeezed shut, tiny slits behind black-rimmed glasses. His hair, dark blonde and thinning, shimmered in the glow from the overhead kitchen light. At the big house, breakfast, lunch, and dinner were eaten in the kitchen. We never ate in the formal dining room, though it was certainly laid out, ready for guests. Uncle Jim said it was just a waste of space, and if he'd built the house, he would have left that room off. Growing up, I imagined that if I'd built the house, I'd use it for every meal. My great-grandparents, Aunt Stella's mother and father, had built the house before they married in the late 1800s. It was 1896, to be exact, when my grandmother came to live here as a bride at 16 to her dashing older groom, 10 years her senior. As the story goes, he met her, fell in love with her, married her against the wishes of her family, and then carried her over the threshold of this sprawling two-story, with tucked-away rooms, long hallways, and an honest-to-goodness brick well on the back porch. Still to this day one can drop an old wooden bucket down into its depths, and then using a beat-up, long-handled tin dipper, sip of something so sweet and clean it almost doesn't seem real. Liquid heaven, Uncle Jim used to call it. In the early days, beyond those rose-covered trellises on the back porch, perfect rows of vegetables for canning and freezing were planted, both for our family and for neighbors in need when there was abundance. Standing behind the small garden was the farm. It extended alongside the highway that ran beside the left side of the house. The crops stretched toward the horizon and out of sight, interrupted only by the leaning of an old barn, the rise of a tin silo, or the deliberate movement of a John Deere tractor. But those days were long gone. That was a time when everything seemed to be about life and living. These past few decades, the earth hasn't been tilled or loved. No planting, no praying for rain, no harvesting, nothing to show for what had been, except the gray of the packed soil and an occasional twig rising up from out of the ground, a remnant of the last crop. Of what my great-grandparents had built, only the big house remained, and it was a part of the remnant of what had at one time been a thriving farm in Cottonwood, Georgia. I blinked several times and brushed away those memories of life. There was too much heartache in the moment to allow myself to remain within them. Now was the time to reflect on death and dying. I could sit here and commiserate, and no one would be the wiser as to the depths into which I was fallen. But I knew that when the funeral was over, when the casket had been lowered into the ground, and the last clump of dirt had been patted down, and the clusters of floral arrangements had been placed strategically about the mound, I'd see that old, proud house filled with family and friends eating fine Southern cooking off chinette plates, reminiscing about the time Uncle Jim did thus and such, and then throwing back their heads and bellowing at their memories. But I would move about the house I had loved my whole life, touching old photographs, their frames caked with dust, seeking a flicker of solitude where I could grieve in my own way for the man I'd loved more like a great-grandfather than a great-uncle, a man who, it seemed, was always right where I needed him to be, except now, when I needed him most. 2. Just as I expected, the house was filled with folks sipping hot coffee, dipping their forks into Mrs. Patterson's banana cream pie, and alternating between thunderous exchanges about Uncle Jim's antics and the quiet moments that came with the memory of his death. I had left Mother and Aunt Stella.